Tonight, the breaking news in the last hour or so, the International Monetary Fund finally approving Ghana's request for a $3 billion bailout. Details as government makes a formal request to the fund to publish the full details of this agreement.
We are committed to transparency. As a result of this, the government has instructed the IMF to publish all the documents once the approval has been given.
But rather than jubilate, Professor Finance is warning businesses and individuals to brace for possible more taxes and asking government not to pop the champagnes just yet.
There are targets that we have to meet every 6 months of the program review. Part of the target may include increasing our tax to GDP revenue, tax to GDP ratio.
We'll also hear from Guta and the Ghana Chamber of Commerce.
The impact of the three taxes are now going to be felt.
Okay.
The likelihood that it will push prices up is also there.
No, we can never pay more taxes.
Well, Guta and the Ghana Chamber of Commerce are also looking forward to the benefits accruing from this approval, as they indicate that many of their members have been waiting to invest more in the economy after the approval. We'll have details for you. Also tonight, founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atuesian, handed up until July 4 to liquidate his assets and refund 55 million cedis to the state.
Maybe now that he's been given a special grace by the court up to the end of June, he'll be able to gather the resources and then pay everything.
You want to stay with us for that and more in business.
Board approval by the International Monetary Fund could come with conditionalities that may cut expenditures of some of government's flagship programs. We have details from Economist Lord Mensah.
And then later, we'll take you to the Champions League, where a titanic clash between Man City and Real Madrid is about to unfold. And let's return now to that breaking story we've been bringing you the last hour or so. It's been about 10 months of lobbying amidst uncertainties, but the wait is now over because tonight, as official, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund has finally approved Ghana's request for a $3 billion bailout. The approval was signed after an emergency sitting earlier today in Washington, D.C., USA. We've already been bringing you the details of that agreement that has been published. And indeed, I'm delighted to say that the Information Minister, Kojo Oponkruma, is joining us right now. Mr. Oponkruma, thanks for your time here on Newsnight.
Thank you, Evans, and good evening to your listeners in Accra.
I'm pretty sure you possibly was in this meeting that finally saw the sign of. Give us a sense of how this all played out.
No, that's an IMF board meeting, and no, I was not in that meeting. But essentially, you recall that in July last year, the 1st of July, we mentioned that we were commencing engagements with the fund in pursuit of a balance of payment support program to support Ghana's economic, may I say, recovery program that we had put together. We call it the PCPEG, the Post-Crisis Program for Economic Growth. And what we needed was a balance of payment support dimension to this broader program. I think before the end of the year, we successfully negotiated the staff level agreement. And before the end of March, the target was to complete the prior actions, which we successfully did. But we needed external parties to provide financing assurances to the board of the fund, which financing assurances came through in the last about a week or so. And so the board had the opportunity to consider the financing assurances, the prior actions, and then the SLA that we had signed. And when they were comfortable with it all, in the words of the managing director in a statement I think she issued a few days ago, they consider it a strong program that lays the foundation for recovery, and therefore they have gone ahead to do what they have to do. I think in the coming hours, the fund will do the formal announcements and provide the details and publish all of the matters that come with it.
And indeed, I know this has been one that we've waited for a long time. When do you expect the first money to hit our accounts?
So I think we also have to correct the impression that this is overdue or has been waited for a long time. The truth is that I think at every point in time when it was mentioned that we intended to meet a particular timeline, the view was that it could never be met. Remember the December timeline, the view was that it couldn't be met. It was met. The March timeline, the view was that it couldn't be met. We finished our prior actions. and then the external assurances rather came in April and is taking place. And I think within 10 or so months, it is not as though it is overly delayed. But now that the board has approved, I think in the shortest possible time, the first disbursements would have to start taking place. And then the program monitoring will also go on to ensure that we are meeting all of the other targets that will be spelled out in what is published later today. And then subsequent disbursements will take place. But I think it's also very important to mention that the IMF deal is not the solution to all our economic challenges. As we said in July last year, it is one of the pillars that are required to function for the entire economic recovery program, or the PC PEG, to take place. And there's a lot more that all of us need to do as an economy to ensure that that recovery comes through.
And that balance of payment support that the government so critically needed for the primary reason why you went, that definitely receives a boost now.
It does. It ensures that we get the Forex in to shore up our Forex reserves at a time when we don't have access to the international capital markets. And then once that is handled, you assure that the medium-term stability of the currency and the fiscal prudence that comes with the necessary conditionalities with an IMF deal come through. But on the real sector side, where you want to get the economy expanding and creating jobs, on the cost of living side, those are things that I think have already started. They are within the ambit of the government of Ghana and the people of Ghana, and we all have to do a lot more in that space.
You've indicated that the IMF Executive Board approval is not the end in itself. You have to complement this with other, interventions to get the economy back to where it used to be. Many hold the view the real work begins now, because after your first tranche, you will now have to meet all these milestones to trigger subsequent disbursement. You agree that the real work begins right now to getting this economy back on a strong footing, and there could be further pain that we all possibly have to be prepared to carry and share going forward?
The work that needs to be done to get the economy back to its levels of about 2017 to 2019 go way beyond the IMF extended credit facility. As we have said over and over again, from the 1st of July 2022, we have an enhanced domestic program, which we call the PC PEG. It's a bigger program. The IMF balance of payment support only provides some external liquidity, some hard currency, and of course some fiscal measures that come along with that as part of this bigger program. But the part of the program that requires to work on growing the real sector of the economy so that people get jobs and incomes, the part of the program that requires us to bring down cost of living, they are not items that are exactly within the IMF program. The IMF program is a good idea because it provides some external resources, but there's a lot more that we need to do, and the work starts now.
Do you have any clarity yet what the possible conditions for triggering subsequent disbursements down the line, all based on assessments? Do we have any indication yet what these might be?
Those have already been agreed in the various negotiation points at the technical level, and later today or in the coming days, the fund will do the formal publishing of the details of all of those. So I won't take the wind out of their sail. But if you take a cue from the 2023 budget that was read in November, some of the key things that must be done, as we kept saying over and over again, had already been agreed and outlined in that budget. And some of them have already been achieved. The domestic debt exchange program, the signing up of 0% financing from the central bank, and a few other things. They have already been included in the 2023 budget that was laid in November 2022. But the timelines and what benchmark is being measured for what sort of assessment, all of those will come in the documents published subsequently.
Should we expect more revenue handles down the line, taxes directly?
Two key things I'll say. The key revenue measures that we envisage have already been passed. That's what we went back to Parliament to do. It's already been passed, but they have to perform. We all have to do our bit to ensure that the targets that were set for those revenue handles are met. Once those targets are met, that means that the tax to GDP ratio thresholds that you are looking for are being met, then you are comfortable that you are performing along the program KPIs. That is what all of us need to look to.
And if you can confirm a few quick timelines for me, the expectation was that this Friday you expect $300 million to hit our accounts, and then Monday an additional $300 million, making $600 million in total. Is that what it is?
I think we'll leave all of those for the fund publications, and I think even later today, possibly a press conference from Washington would make those details available.
Mr. Ponkrumah, thank you very much. And that's the information Minister Kojo Ponkrumah. I want to bring in right now Professor Godfred Bokwing, is an economist and joins us on the telephone line right now. Prof, thank you for your time. So, it's finally here. It's official. The Executive Board has given the approval. You had said to me yesterday when we were anticipating this that, yes, it's good, but don't pop the champagnes yet. Do you still stand by that? And why do you think that is?
Yes, broadly good news. If you check, you will see that the past 6 months, government, Ghanaians, all that we have been doing is to prepare ourselves for an IMF program. That is all that we are doing. Meeting prior actions, preparing ourselves for the arrival of the program. So once the program has been approved, yes, because this is all that from the president to ministers to everyone, all that we have been saying the past 6 months is that we are waiting for the IMF program. So thankfully, the program has been approved. If you check, you will see that this was an emergency case. From when the funding assurance was secured and the IMF schedule, and when the program was approved, you will see the urgency with which the IMF attaches to Ghana's IMF-supported program. Right. So, in other words, we can't wait any longer. This is what the whole country has been waiting for. So, to that extent, I would say that is good news. It's also good news to the extent that actually from the third quarter of 2021, when the Minister of Finance or government team went to the Eurobond market to borrow, and the market delivered a verdict on our borrowing spree, we knew that Ghana had taken a turn for the West and that we were heading dangerously. And that is why, Evans, from the third quarter of 2021, we started ringing the alarm bell that Ghana needed to reach out to the IMF because our credibility had been discounted and that we had lost policy credibility within the eyes of the international community and then international investors. But the government felt that they could undo that by coming out with their own homegrown fiscal consolidation measures, which were contained in the 2022 budget. And you see that from the 2022 budget, the major tax handle and the biggest problem that government failed to convince investors was the revenue gap. So government's whole posture was hinged on e-levy, that if e-levy could deliver the revenue estimation, then given that they were going to form a company and use the e-levy as a collateral, then that could help them to get the much needed funding. And the conclusion of the 2022 budget was that it failed to inspire hope and to outline a fiscal sustainability path. And therefore, Ghana's problems became entrenched. And investors started seeking early redemption of their investment and all of that. And therefore, finally, on the 1st of July, government reached out to Washington for IMF-supported program. Now, you will see that what Ghana lacked and what Ghana failed to create by its own measures is what the IMF brings on board: policy credibility, fiscal discipline, because we have failed as a country to ensure fiscal discipline or impose fiscal discipline on ourselves. We have failed as a country in pursuing prudent monetary policy. So you see, while the IMF was away, Bank of Ghana was busy financing the deficit. And in fact, in 14 months, Bank of Ghana have given financial support to Ghana government than we could get from the IMF over a 3-year period. Check. To date, Bank of Ghana's lending to Ghana government is over 77 billion cedis. Okay, with that posture, there is no way you can deploy monetary policy effectively to bring down inflation and engineer growth. And that is why we have predicted, and rightly so, that under the IMF program, there will be zero financing of the deficit. Now, so you see directly that the IMF is bringing $3 billion over a 3-year period. Typically, that is not sufficient to close the dollar deficit or the dollar gap or deficit in the system. But what the IMF program does is that on the strength of the program, they are also able to draw on their sister institutions like the World Bank. So the World Bank is also pledging about $1 billion to support the program. The African Development Bank will also take some aspects. And then Ghana's bilateral. And that is why the assurance of funding from Ghana's bilateral partners became a critical prior action. Why is that so? And I'm sure the Minister of Information just mentioned that a while ago, that given that Ghana has lost access to international markets, and also in the medium to the long-term end of the market, we've been priced out, the only way that we could finance the gap, and the gap in the 2023 budget alone is over $5 billion. So if the IMF had approved the program without the funding assurance, there's no way the program can work. It can only achieve limited effectiveness.
Yeah, Prof, I'm grateful laying it out for us what we can expect, but also the implications of this for our wider economy. And there's some more analysis of this. You can find it on myjoyonline.com. We've broken this down on PM Express yesterday. You can go onto My Joy Online and look at what the benefits are. As we've been looking at this, as you go onto My Joy Online for the details, you will find that already, even in the anticipation of the approval, some of the indicators are beginning to show a positive uptick there. And in fact, the business community, for example, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Ghana Union Traders Association, both have already been talking about what they plan to do in terms of reducing prices if the gains have already been evident, i.e. the cedi strengthening against the dollar with the last few days, as we anticipated the executive board approval tonight. They're promising that they will be reducing prices if this is sustained. Listen to the two leaders of the two groups.
Where is sustainability? Okay. In fact, when we are able to sustain it, it's just a natural phenomenon that the cost of production will also go up. I mean, if there's a stability in the foreign exchange market and the cedi $1 is to, let's say, 6.7. Of course, if I'm importing, the duty that I will pay at the port will go down. Definitely, the price will also will be affected. Inflation will come down.
Do not plan for price reduction. Price reduction is a sequence, a natural sequence. So when the exchange rate have gone down as we are expecting, and it stabilized for a longer period, then you see that it trickle down on the pricing. So it's not that when it goes up and down and all that, it becomes so confusing. Okay. So, but the market responds when it should respond.
And that there is the president of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abuaji, and also you had the president of GUTA also in that particular clip as well. So what's in this for you? Go to myjoyonline.com for details of that analysis and the breakdown of this. There's another major developing story today, and you had details of that also on top story in the last few minutes or so, and it has to do with the decision of the Supreme Court today to declare as null and void the election and swearing in of James Achikwesi in the NDC Member of Parliament for Asin North. He cannot go to Parliament anymore. That seat has now been declared vacant. And we've been hearing from the opposition, National Democratic Congress. They are holding the view that this matter is far from over. But we know also in the last hour that James Achikwesi himself has issued a statement in which he says he is no longer interested in litigating this matter. He says he leaves the matter to the court of conscience. If you have any view, please share with us. 055-1111-997. Let's stay in the courts because founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atuisian, has been handed up until July 4 to liquidate his assets and refund 55 million cedis to the state. Now, Justice Richard Duffuor says this is to ensure that Mr. Atuisian is given a fair chance to secure his freedom. The businessman risks possible jail term as he has breached the terms of an agreement he reached with the state to refund 90 million cedis to the state. He has so far paid 35 million. Legal affairs correspondent Joseph Akable has been following this closely and joins us with details on this via Zoom. Joseph, we know the court previously indicated renegotiation was not an option. So what changed today?
It was after reviewing a document, and Justice Richard Duffuor took the view that Mr. Atuisian had attached documents showing an agreement that one of his companies, Asian Swiss Investment Holdings, is to enter into with a company, and within 90 days they were expecting some $300,000 to come in. When the conversion was now at the rate of 12 cedis, we are looking at almost 5 million cedis. And so the court said that it just thinks that it should give him some time, because once the Attorney General moves his application, it will mean that the court will have no choice but to rule on it, and it may now have to proceed to pronounce sentence. And so since it borders on his freedom, Justice Richard Duffuor said he gives him the opportunity between now and July 4. In fact, after reading his ruling, he spoke directly to Mr. Atuisian and said that if you care about your freedom, try your best possible to raise the money. I want to do that so that at least if we come back and the application is moved, everyone will know that I was fair to you.
Is the AG satisfied with this arrangement?
Deputy AG Alfred Tuayebua simply pointed out to the court first that the amount of almost 5 million cedis, that is the $300,000 that we are looking at, is nowhere near the 55 million cedis that he has to refund, because the AG's view is that per section 35(7) of the Court Act, once he breached the terms of the agreement, i.e. after paying the 30 million cedis upfront, and when he failed to pay the 20 million cedis, which is the first tranche of the 3 installments of 20 million cedis that he's supposed to pay by April 28, 2023, it meant that the entire amount that was outstanding became due. So he was drawing the court's attention that if he is going to work towards it between now and the set date, he needs to be working towards getting that amount of 55 million cedis.
I've made it clear to the court that the amount outstanding is 55 million Ghana cedis. And since today the court, in its own wisdom, has granted the convict up to the end of June, it's our expectation that when we come back in June, that amount must be paid, because that amount has become payable in lieu of the default on the part of the convict. Their thinking will be that they may want to pay the 20 million. But if you look at section 35(7), the language is very simple. If you default in the payment, the outstanding amount becomes payable. So we are looking at the amount left with 55 billion Ghana cedis being paid on or before the next date. Of course, we are always at the mercy of the court. We are sticking to the law, and we are all servants of the law. And the law says that if a convict defaults, the outstanding sum becomes payable. So we are insisting on that. Yes, looking at the document that he has exhibited, you realize that if you add the first amount that he's expecting, which is about $300,000, it will not be up to 4 million Ghana cedis. Maybe now that he's been given a special grace by the court up to the end of June, he'll be able to gather the resources and then pay everything. But looking at what we have in the document that he has, the agreement that he has with that company, written that he cannot pay the 55 million Ghana cedis, but maybe he may have other options.
And Joseph, let's talk about another case in court today, the trial of former GFA boss Kwesi Nyantakyi. The High Court, I understand, has ruled that investigative journalist Nass Nass will testify against the former GFA boss, the Ghana Football Association boss, President Kwesi Nyantakyi, in open court. And Joseph, clarify for me. We know Nass always, when he is in public, will have this trademark mask on. How will the court deal with that?
And so the resolution is that when he comes over to the court, he'll be taken to the chambers of the judge where lawyers for Mr. Kusinyantechi and Kusinyantechi himself will look at his face. You take off the beads and the mask on his face, you take it off for them to look at his face. Then he wears the mask and then comes back to testify wearing the beads. And that will be done every single time he comes over to the courtroom. Every single time he has to testify, he needs to take off the mask in chambers for his face to be inspected by Mr. Kusinyantechi's and his lawyers. Then they come back for the proceedings to take place. I mean, he is the key witness in this particular matter. You remember Nass's legal team had indicated that the main witness that was supposed to testify in this particular case was Ahmed Swale, and they had even pointed out that he was actually killed after he had left a meeting with the AG's representatives strategizing for this particular case. This is the criminal case filed against Kusinyantechi following the number 12 documentary. And so he's supposed to testify as the Attorney General's witness. And after Ahmed Swale was killed, Nass stepped in to offer that testimony. So the AG had actually made an application to the court to have him testify in camera. So the courtroom would have been cleared, then he would testify. But lawyers for Kusinyantechi made a case that when Nass made the allegations against Mr. Nyantechi, it was done publicly. So they expect him to mount the witness box with his face showing to the public and testifying in this particular matter. The court, they had explained that it is in the interest of justice that an accused person has the opportunity to confront his accuser directly and by face. But the court has said that the compromise that is arriving at is that it had seen videos of Nass granting interviews while having the hat with the beads at the front on it. And so it says that that shows that he's comfortable appearing in public in that manner. But with regard to the question about an accused having a chance to confront his accuser, then the option would be that the inspection should be done in chambers, then he comes into the box and testifies.
Joseph, thank you very much. You're still live here on Newsnight. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. Shortly, I'll be telling you about the expected increase in electricity tariff by 18.36%. You want to stay with us because we have details of that for you here on Newsnight. In the meantime, though, we have business. And by the way, I know George has been following this an IMF deal for so long. Now it's been settled. Business had been taking the lead in breaking the story. Was it last week that you hinted, all of us, that this was coming and was coming this week? It has happened, and I know you have details of that.
Yes, we've heard the businesses speak to that. And of course, an economist is also warning that that could come with some consequences on government's, owns this an expenditure. And we'll pretty soon hear from economist Lord Mensah. Also coming up, consumers of petroleum products deprived of some significant reduction in fuel prices following increase in unified price of petroleum fund and fuel market margins. We've got details of these and many more after this break. Business news on Newsnight brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Ghana Pay and Alliance Live. Economist Professor Lord Mensah stated that the board approval by the International Monetary Fund could commence a series of action that may see the government being asked to rationalize its expenditure. Speaking to Joy Business, Professor Mensah pointed out that some of government's flagship programs that are heavily subsidized may be affected.
The staff level agreement, we propose that we're going to introduce 3 revenue handles, and that is what we have done. But then the expenditure lines, obviously, I think they're going to restrict government from, spending on certain areas that, they think may not have necessarily a direct impact. So possibly we're looking at maybe finding a way to restructure the free SHS, which is going to reflect in the coming budget, and then also restructure some other capital expenditure areas. Projects that are ongoing, I believe, can go on, but new ones may not be, starting up. So these are some of the areas that I'm expecting, the conditions to touch on.
Mensah, a while longer on, the IMF and the Ghana cedi has begun gaining more grounds against the US dollar today following the approval of a $3 billion extended credit facility arrangement by the International Monetary Fund for Ghana. The following report has more.
According to Bloomberg, the cedi has become the world's best performer against the dollar, over the past 6 months. It has advanced 33% since November last year, the biggest gain among about 150 currencies, reversing some significant losses. In the retail market, the cedi has lost about 8.7% in value to the US dollar since the beginning of the year. This is far better than the interbank market. Checks by Joy Business at the Forex bureaus indicate that the local currency is going 11 cedis, 30 pesos to the American greenback.
Senior lecturer at the Finance Department of the University of Ghana, Dr. Lodina Amwa, has indicated that a lot more measures are needed in rebuilding confidence in the financial sector. According to her, banks must seek alternative sources of investments rather than investing solely in government securities. She was speaking at a webinar on sustaining confidence in the financial sector organized by the Chartered Institute of Banks.
Even though the banking sector is mostly the dominant investor in government of Ghana securities because of regulatory issues and also because of market dynamics, there's still the room for us to now rethink, how do we proceed going forward? Are we going to be putting so much of the money into government securities? What are the options? And rather look at increasing the loan to deposit ratio, whereas we push a lot of the capital to the real sector in order to be able to drive development. I believe that whereas we can see some form of rebound within the financial sector based on the Q1 results, there's still a lot more that needs to be done in order to be able to bring up the confidence in the financial sector to the level that can drive development and sustainable growth within the economy.
Dr. Lodina Mwa is a senior lecturer at the Finance Department of the University of Ghana. Consumers of petroleum products have been deprived of some significant reduction in fuel prices at the pumps from today. That's according to some oil marketing companies that Joy Business has engaged following the reduction in prices of some petroleum products. There is more in the following Business Desk report.
The National Petroleum Authority, in a letter dated May 15, 2023, directed the various players in the industry to increase Unified Price Petroleum Fund and fuel market margins on the various petroleum products. The development resulted in consumers now paying 75 pesos per litre on every petroleum purchased as Unified Petroleum Price Fund. This represents an increase of 28 pesos over the previous margin paid. Diesel also went up by a similar margin. Fuel marketing margin has also gone up by 5 pesos per litre for the various prices of petroleum products, and consumers will also be paying 9 pesos on every litre purchased. Some of the oil marketing companies have also reduced price at the pumps, but there are fears that it could affect price at the next review at the end of this month. Some industry players have raised concerns about the commitment to reduce price of petroleum products following this move by the National Petroleum Authority.
Desk report. Now, Ghanaian manufacturers and industry captains for the first time will be hosting other African counterparts for this year's ProPark conference and exhibition in Accra. The event, which provides a platform for market expansion and avenue for sharing ideas among industry players, will also support activities of smaller businesses across the continent. Here is Regional Director for West Africa, George Pearson.
ProPark Ghana really, it's a number of things. One, you are bringing in international technology partners. So it's not just the big companies looking for the multinationals. You know, we have a range of solutions and products from companies that will be providing lines for cutting mango, for lines for making mango pulp or pineapple pulp, right through to the SMEs that are looking for good quality but affordable, sustainable packaging.
And that's your business on Newsnight with me, Pius Kujubaka. Back to you, Evans.
Pius, thank you very much for the details on the world of business. And by the way, I will be bringing you details shortly of the latest adjustment in electricity tariffs. Stay with us. And you're live here on Newsnight. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. Shortly, we'll be crossing over to our Champions League coverage, that game between Man City and Real Madrid. But in the meantime, today, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission has announced an increase in electricity tariffs by as much as 18%. 0.36%. Already, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, is asking the PURC to reconsider that approval. Listen to the Greater Accra chairman of the association, Chonam Akbalu.
The periodic and the quarterly review of the utility tariff, that exercise generally welcome because it has been part of something we discussed, and so we are fully aware of the review. But it's important to say that the last review they did, which witnessed a significant increase in utility tariff, has affected industry significantly, negatively and significantly, so much so that we've been engaging them, actually get them to reduce. So this particular announcement can only be unfortunate because while we are fighting and asking them to consider to review the utility tariff in a way that would get industry to be able to pay less, they are rather increasing it. And it's almost as though the utility tariff commission is not taking industry very seriously, because if you look at the reason they are citing, they are talking about the exchange rate, the dollar and the CBS rate fluctuating, which is true. But how should that be a reason why you're going to continue to increase the utility tariff? Our view is that we cannot continue to be a victim of all of these.
And that, by the way, is the reaction from the AGI. What about you? Many of you on the streets have been talking to us about the latest increase in electricity tariffs.
Inflation of the cities and the dollars, and they are coming to add things like that. It's not making things easy. Because when they are coming with the MOMO, the e-levy and everything, it's making us angry because, like, we are not in our own country. We are like tenants, and the country is belonging to other people. I don't know. I'm really fed up of this country.
They have been crazy. But what we are pleading for government to do is they should look into it and see if the poor masses can afford to pay. That's what we are pleading for. They should look into it if the poor people can be able to afford the price. It's affecting my business because you can see how the increment goes now. You know, it's even me, I don't have because I don't have money to buy it. And it's affecting my business.
Well, we've been hearing from the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Let's listen to the Director of Research and Corporate Affairs there, Dr. Eric Kabute, who has been justifying the increase, saying it is to avert doomsday.
Quarterly reviews that we do are based on four key factors which we always talk about. One being the fuel price, the other one being the exchange rate variation, and another one being inflation and the generation mix between thermal and the hydro. Now, if we take the exchange rate, for instance, the exchange rate variation between the time we built the tariff last quarter and this quarter, the percentage increase is 20.56%. Last time around, we used an exchange rate of 10.54 cedis to the dollar. This time around, the projected exchange rate is 12.71 cedis to the dollar. The weighted average cost of gas, which we call the WACC, has also shot up. These two factors alone have necessitated an increase, however small it may be. Now, the previous time, we did not take full account of the exchange rate variation. We applied only 75% of the exchange rate variation. So we had a 25% under recovery of the exchange rate. And the 18.36% that we came up with, it's not the full tariff that we came up with. Knowing pretty well that the economic situation is not good for everyone. If we had wanted to apply the full 100% recovery of the tariff would have gone up more than 18.36%.
And that is a PURC's view on the increases. Listen, it's time now to join the live